It was a warm Saturday afternoon when the Martin family decided to celebrate their daughter's graduation at a local upscale restaurant. The air was filled with the hum of quiet chatter and the clinking of silverware. They were excited, dressed in their best clothes, and filled with hope for a memorable experience. But little did they know, this afternoon would soon take a dark and unexpected turn. The waitress, a young woman named Amber, greeted them with a forced smile. Her eyes briefly lingered on the family, her gaze flickering with an unreadable expression. As she led them to their table, her movements were stiff and distant. There was something about her, an air of discomfort, as if she couldn't quite mask her disdain. "You folks need anything to drink?" Amber asked coldly, snapping her notepad open. "We'll have some water to start, please," Mr. Martin replied with a warm smile, unaware of the tension bubbling beneath the surface. The family sat down, chatting and laughing as they perused the menu, oblivious to the storm brewing behind the scenes. Amber stood behind the counter, her eyes darting over to them. The whispers began. The murmurs between Amber and the kitchen staff were subtle at first, but they quickly escalated. Without warning, Amber walked up to the table, her demeanor completely changed. Her voice was icy now, barely hiding the hostility she felt. "Excuse me," she said, her words sharp. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The Martin family froze. Mr. Martin looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "We've done nothing wrong." Amber's gaze narrowed. "You're causing a disturbance. I'm calling security." Before anyone could react, she stepped away and marched straight to the phone behind the bar. The tension in the room was palpable as the restaurant's manager, a tall, middle-aged man named John, approached. Amber spoke in hushed tones to him, pointing toward the family's table. Mr. Martin tried to reason with him, but John just shook his head, his face unreadable. "Please, I'm going to have to ask you all to leave," John said. "I've been informed there's been some trouble." The family's jaws dropped. The restaurant was supposed to be a safe haven, a place where they could celebrate. Instead, they were being treated like criminals. But there was more at play here than anyone realized. As security arrived and the situation escalated, something extraordinary was about to unfold. Just as the situation seemed to reach its breaking point, a figure walked into the restaurant, an older man in a suit with an air of authority. His name was Mr. Thompson, the restaurant's owner. He had been away on business but had been alerted to the scene. He looked at the family, and then turned his piercing gaze to the manager and Amber. "I've just been told there's been a misunderstanding," Mr. Thompson said calmly, his voice cutting through the growing chaos. "Is that correct?" Amber's face turned pale, and her lips trembled. "Aye," the manager stammered, "but there's been a disturbance, sir." "We were just before anyone could explain further." Mr. Thompson silenced them with a single gesture. He then turned to the Martin family and offered a deep bow of apology. "Please sit back down. Dinner is on me. This won't be tolerated in my establishment." The air was thick with tension as Amber's face flushed with embarrassment. Mr. Thompson's gaze softened, and he turned back to the staff. "I'm afraid your services are no longer needed, Amber. You're fired." Amber's eyes widened, but she didn't speak. The entire room fell silent as Mr. Thompson turned toward the security team and nodded. "Escort her out," he said firmly. Amber stumbled back, her face a mix of shock and regret. As she was led out of the restaurant, a gasp of disbelief rippled through the room. But the story didn't end there. Mr. Thompson, having witnessed the interaction firsthand, approached the Martin family with a quiet apology. "I'm deeply sorry for the way you've been treated. You see, I've been tracking the performance of my staff, and what happened today was unacceptable. You were targeted for no reason other than prejudice. But I'm going to make this right." The family was speechless as Mr. Thompson leaned in, his voice low. "You see, there's more to this restaurant than meets the eye. I was going to announce it soon, but it seems fate has pushed my hand." The truth is, I've been working on a project. A big one. And I need someone with vision, someone who understands people, and I've been watching you. Mr. Martin blinked in confusion. What do you mean? Mr. Thompson smiled. I've been looking for someone to take over this restaurant. To not just run it, but to transform it. And Mr. Martin, I believe that someone is you. The last few months, I've noticed your business sense from your small ventures. You don't even realize it yet, but you've been unknowingly preparing for this. The Martin family sat frozen in shock. What had just happened? Was this really the same person who had been kicked out just moments before? As the reality of the offer sunk in, the full weight of what had just transpired began to unfold. Amber's racism, Mr. Thompson's intervention, and the incredible offer all seemed to collide in a way that was too coincidental to ignore. But there was one final twist. Mr. Thompson's last words lingered in the air, leaving a new mystery to unravel. By the way, Mr. Martin, I've been watching your daughter too. She's not just a graduate. I think you'll find she has a future here as well. The story was only just beginning, and the family would soon discover that their connection to Mr. Thompson and his offer went deeper than they could have ever imagined.